Democratic presidential candidate Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts is speaking at a campaign event at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire. Live Road to the White House coverage on C-SPAN.
Hampshire neighbors, since this is neighbor to neighbor, I figure you come with your whole family, so I got Bruce and Bailey. Come on up and say hello. Bruce is the tall one. Yes. Yeah, I know why you're here. So Bruce and Bailey are here. The way we're going to do this today is I thought I'd talk for a little bit, and then we'll take as many questions as we can work in, and then I'll stay and do pictures, and Bailey will have his own photo line. This is not a competition. It can't be, because if it is, I'm not going to win this, I'm afraid. So anyway, Bailey will be here. He'll be set up somewhere else. So thank you, sweetheart. I'm glad you're here. So let me start by saying how much I appreciate that on a Saturday afternoon when you could be doing a whole lot of other things, that you came here to talk about policy and about the direction of our country, because this is a genuinely scary time for America. And we're coming down to a decision in 2020 that is going to make a difference in the direction our country goes for a long, long time. And a big part of that decision is going to come straight through New Hampshire. So thank you very much for being here today. It matters. Thank you. Thank you. I thought maybe I'd just tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm in this fight. And I grew up out in Oklahoma. I am the youngest. I have 3 much older brothers. I was what used to be referred to as the late-in-life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. Yeah, I was about 30 before it hit me what that meant. I have, like I said, 3 older brothers. They all went off and joined the military. My oldest brother, Don Reed, 288 combat missions in Vietnam. We were very lucky to get him back home. My second brother, John, he was stationed in Morocco and other places for a long time. My third brother, David, trained as a combat medic. And he never actually was put into action. But if you ever see my brother David, if you're ever back in Oklahoma, because that's where you'd have to be to see him, he ain't leaving. But if you ever see my brother David, all I can say is I just have one piece of advice. Do not choke around him. David is convinced to this day that he could perform a tracheotomy with his pocket knife. So, Thanksgiving, anybody, you get out of the room. So when my 3 brothers and I were growing up, it was a paycheck-to-paycheck family. My daddy sold a lot of stuff. He sold carpeting, he sold paint, he sold fencing. And by the time I was in middle school, all my brothers are gone. And it's just my mother and me, and my daddy had a heart attack. And it was really scary. We thought he was going to die. And he didn't. He made it home from the hospital, but he couldn't go to work for a long, long time. We lost the family station wagon, and at night, my mama would tuck me into bed, and then I'd hear him talk. And that's where I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And one day, I walked into my parents' bedroom, and laid out on the bed was the dress. Some of you will know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And my mother's in her slip and her stocking feet, and she's pacing and she's crying. She's saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house." She was 50 years old. She had never been employed out of the home, and she was terrified. So finally, she wrestles that dress on, puts on her high heels, blows her nose, and she walks to the Sears Roebuck and gets a minimum wage job. That minimum wage job saved our house, and it saved our family. And if you want to know who I am, there it is. That's the story written on my heart forever and ever. Now, I used to think of that story as a story just about my mother, about how when she was scared, she reached down, found what it took, and did what needed to be done. And years later, I came to understand it's a story of millions of people. Millions of people who, even when they're scared, even when it's tough, reach down and do what has to be done to take care of themselves and to take care of the people they love. And it was only years after that that I came to understand. It was also a story about government. Because when I was a kid and this happened, a minimum wage job in America would support a family of 3. It would pay a mortgage, it would cover the utilities, and it would put food on the table. Today, a minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty, and that is why I am in this fight. There it is. Because understand this, why the change? Why the change? It's because of a decision made in Washington. Back then, the question that Congress asked itself was, what does it take a family of 3 to get a foothold in America's middle class? What does it take a family of 3 where somebody's working full-time just to support themselves, just keep your nose above water, not get rich, but just keep yourself afloat? That was the question then. I sit in the United States Senate today, and the question today is, what is the level of minimum wage that maximizes the profits for giant institutions across this country? I want a government that doesn't just work for giant institutions. I want a government that works for little families, and that's why that's it. So, I told you, all 3 of my brothers headed off to the military. That was their ticket to the middle class. That was their chance. Me, I had a different dream. I wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Yes. I've wanted it since 2nd grade. I used to line my dollies up and teach them. I want you all to know I was firm but fair. But I loved it. It's all I wanted to do. The story gets very twisty and turny. By the time I graduate from high school, we got no money. I got a scholarship. Then at 19, I fell in love. Not to that guy. Everybody got to start somewhere. I fell in love. I dropped out of school. It all turned again and again. My big chance was a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. And then it happened for me. I got a job as a special needs teacher. I loved that job. Yes. And at the end of my first year, I was rather visibly pregnant. And in those days, the principal just didn't invite me back. So I'm at home with a little baby, and I decide to go to law school. I mean, this is like crazy, right? But I decide to do it. I find a state law school, graduate from law school, also pregnant. You may discover a pattern here. But end up back in teaching. And I've spent decades now working on one central issue, and that's what's happening to working families across America. What's happening that today a mama can work just as hard as my mama worked, but the family can't make it? How is it that for millions of people across this country, the path has gotten rockier and steeper, and for people of color, it has gotten even rockier and even steeper? What's gone wrong in this country? Why has America's middle class been hollowed out? And the answer I come to is back to Washington. It's a government that works for those at the top and isn't working for anyone else. It's a government that works great, understand this, works fabulously for giant drug companies, just not for people who are trying to get a prescription filled. It's a government that works great for giant oil companies that want to drill anywhere, but not for people who see climate change bearing down upon us. It is a government that works great for investors in private prisons, but not for people whose lives are torn apart and for communities that are destroyed. When government works only for those with money, that is corruption, and we need to call it out plain and simple. I want you to think for just a minute about the impact of this corruption, because I guarantee it touches every single person in this room, every person in this state, every person in this country. Whatever issue brought you here today, there is a decision about money, influenced by money, in Washington that lies right at the center of blocking the actions we need to take on behalf of the American people. So whether it's gun safety that brought you here today, think about it. Whether it's net neutrality that brought you here today, whether it's student loans that brought you here today, whether it's climate change that brought you here today. In fact, let's do that one, since we got somebody who said, yeah. Think about it with climate change. No, think about this for a sec. With climate change, go back and look. 20 years ago, as a country, we were actually looking at scientific data. As a country, we agreed science is important. We believed in science. And then some billionaires named Coke, right? And some other big industries, oil industry that make their money off fossil-based fuels, started pushing back and started pumping money into Washington. And when I say pumping money in, understand, it's not only campaign finance, although that's a big part of it. It's pumping money into the lobbyists, pumping money into the think tanks, pumping money into the bought and paid for experts, pumping money into the PR machines. Why? Just to raise a little doubt, just to delay a little bit, just to keep the works gummed up long enough that Congress didn't take the actions that we should have been taking a decade ago. So think about corruption that way. Every problem that we're trying to solve, that we're trying to deal with, intersects through this question of a government that works great if you can hire an army of lobbyists. A government that works great if you got the money to make yourself heard in Washington. But a government that too often just doesn't want to hear from anyone else. So what do we do about that? Well, my view is we can't talk any longer about small changes, changes at the margin, one bill here that we'll fight for, one legislative initiative over there that we'll fight for, 2 changes in the regulations over there. We need big systemic change. Big change. So, let me give you 3 areas that we should think about change in. The first one is we need to change Washington. And that means we need to call out corruption for what it is and then attack it head on. That's how we're going to do this. Yep. So I have the biggest anti-corruption bill since Watergate. We need a big anti-corruption bill right now. We need big change. There's a lot of problems, so there's a lot to this bill. So let me just give you some samples out of this bill. The first part, change lobbying as we know it. End lobbying as we know it. Yeah. Another one, block the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. That's got to stop. Yep. Oh, let's see. What else do we want to do? A third one. How about if we make the United States Supreme Court follow basic ethics rules? Okay, and I'm going to do just one more. I know, I could do these all day. I'm going to do just one more. Everybody who runs for federal office, everybody, has to put their tax returns online. I've done it, everyone should do it. Okay, so that's one. Change the rules in Washington. That's systemic change. Second one, we got to change the rules in our economy. We've got an economy right now where giant corporations can just run over pretty much anybody. They can run over their workers, they can run over consumers, they can run over small businesses, they can run over local townships, they can just run over anyone. But the point is, instead of hitting them one off and one off, we got to get some balance back into the system. And that means more power in the hands of employees. It means more power in the hands of unions. We need to make it easy to join a union. Look, I'll say it the way I see it. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class. Talking about the economy, we got to talk about attacking the costs that hardworking families deal with every day. Let's start with healthcare is a basic human right. I support Medicare for all. Yeah, we got to do this. But it's so much more. We've got to bring down student loan debt. It's killing an entire generation. And one I've been talking about for a whole week now, we need universal child care and early education. Yes, universal, everybody, 0 to 5, invest in our kids. So we got a lot, I'm going to do one more on housing, and it is, because it's important. We need to invest in housing. Housing for middle-class families, for working families, for the working poor, for people with disabilities, for seniors. We've got to make these investments. There we go. Yes, we do. So, actually, we do. All right, then I'm going to do one more, okay? No, but it's really important. We have an opioid crisis in this country. 188 people will die in America today. That's like a plane crash. Think about that. And it'll happen again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And here's the deal. So someone comes to you, someone you love, someone you know, and says, I've got a problem. I need help. Do you realize that across this nation, that person has less than a 1 in 6 chance of getting the medical treatment that they need? And why? Not because we don't know. It's because right now in America, this country will not spend the resources to help people who have an addiction problem. I believe in the worth of every single human being. I have a bill with Congressman Elijah Cummings that would really hit this one head on and put the resources we need. We don't need photo ops over opioid addiction. We need real resources to be able to fight back for all of our families. So thank you. Got this one. Okay. So, change the rules in Washington, change the rules in our economy. And the third one, change the rules in politics. Yeah. So where does that start? Let me tell you where I want to start it. I want to see a constitutional amendment to protect the right to vote and make sure every vote gets counted. And I want to overturn Citizens United. Democracy is not for sale. And by the way, New Hampshire, I don't take corporate PAC money. Shoot, I don't take PAC money of any kind. I don't take federal lobbyist money. I got some more coming out on how we finance our campaigns. But you have a right here in New Hampshire to ask everybody who wants your vote, are they committed to making sure that their campaigns are funded by the people, not by the powerful? Okay, so there it is. Just 3 things we need to do. Change the rules in Washington, change the rules in our economy, and change the rules in our politics. Protect our democracy, right? 3 things that we need to do. Yeah, it's big structural change. But look, the way I see this, you don't get what you don't fight for. So I'm in this fight all the way. I want to do this. I started this by telling you the story that I got to be what I wanted to be, and that is a public school teacher. I end up on this stage today out of gratitude. My daddy ended up as a janitor, but his daughter got a chance to be a public school teacher, got a chance to be a college professor, got a chance to be a United States Senator, and got a chance to be a candidate for President of the United States. I have lived opportunity in this country. It's pretty amazing. I've lived it, and I believe in it. So I stand here today out of a deep commitment that we can be an America, that we can fight for an America where not just the children born into wealth, but an America where every single child has real opportunity to build something with their lives. That's why I'm in this fight, and I'm grateful to you for being here today. Thank you. Thank you. So Paige, come on up. Thank you. Paige, who's going to do this? Here, Paige, come on over. Here we go. Okay.
Hi.
So say hello, Paige.
Hi.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Warren.
It's good to be here.
So I will be leading the Q&A section. As Jay mentioned before, you had the option to have a ticket with a number on it. So I will choose these numbers at random. I will choose by saying the last 4 digits of your ticket. So when I call your number, please come down to the microphones on either side. They will be with the wonderful volunteers. And you can ask your question. I'm going to call a few numbers at a time, so please listen carefully, and we will try to get as many questions as we can in this time.
Okay. Just trying to give everybody an equal chance to ask a question. And you see, we spared no expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fancy.
Yeah.
Okay, Paige.
It's real fancy.
Oh, man.
All right, so 4970.
4970. Do we have a winner? Whoa, there we
Hey.
go. Come on down.
4978.
4978.
And
4978. Whoa.
4995.
4995. We have one more? 4995? Yeah, oh, there we go. Go the other way. There you go. There you go, since you're right in the middle. Okay. Hi, how are you? Hi, so tell me your name.
Ellie.
Ellie? It's nice to meet you, Ellie.
Yeah, my real name's Elizabeth, too.
Whoa! All right. Way to go. Double Elizabeths. Like, this is a special moment, right? Okay, okay. So tell me your question, Ellie.
I have three.
Three. This child is a New Hampshire child, right? Totally prepared, full list of questions. Okay, Ellie, I'm going to do my best.
So my first question is, if you become president, what would be the first thing you would do in office?
Oh, good question. So Ellie says if you become president, first thing you're going to do in office, it's attack corruption head on. Because if we break the back of money influence in Washington, then the rest of the pieces become much more doable. If we can knock back the influence of the lobbyists and the bought and paid for experts, the revolving door, then we got a chance to do what we need to do on universal child care, on a Green New Deal, on the pieces we need to make this country work. Okay, answer? Okay, Ellie.
My second question is, will you fix our democracy?
Oh, that's what this is. No, but it's good. It's a great question because that's exactly what this is about. You know, what really, really worries me, Ellie, is one of the two major political parties in America today thinks that they're going to win, that they're going to hold on to power by keeping American citizens from voting. Think about that. That's not how democracy is supposed to work. And right now, Washington, awash in money, so that folks like the Koch brothers, who can spend tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to buy influence, own a larger share of democracy, of your government, than you do. That's not democracy. So that's what I'm fighting back against, Ellie. I want you to have a voice in Washington that's every bit as loud as any billionaire in this country. Okay? Good. Good. Okay, what else you got, Ellie?
My last question is, do you support public funding of elections?
Yes, ma'am. Okay? Good. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you. Whoa, Ellie. Let's hear it for Ellie. You know, I don't know about you all, but I feel a little safer about democracy when Ellie comes up. So thank you, Ellie. Good. So who have we got next?
I'm Patty May.
Hi, Patty May. Is that your trio sweatshirt?
It is.
Oh, I'm a trio supporter. Anybody, you want to explain to people trio?
Yes, I will.
We got some trio back there.
Yeah. But I'm the director of the TRIO program
Oh,
here at
great.
Plymouth State University. And
Wonderful.
For those who don't know, TRIO is a federal program that's been around since the late 60s. And the goal is to help students who are first generation, low income, or have a disability succeed through school, college, and even graduate school.
Yep.
It's a highly successful program. Again, has been around for over 50 years, and I just want to thank you for your continued support of the program, for being a member of the TRIO caucus, and we hope that we can count on your further support to ensure that we have educational access for all.
You bet. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great question. Thank you so much. So TRIO really is a great program, and it is. It's about success. It's about what it takes to have success. But can I just broaden this out for just 1 minute about college, because I may not get another chance to talk about it. These are the fundamental questions, the ways our country has shifted. I went to a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. And what I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job got me a job as a public school teacher and catapulted me into America's middle class. That is real opportunity, and that opportunity does not exist in America today. I am in this fight because I believe it should be there for all of our kids. Today in America, people are carrying $1.5 trillion in student loan debt. Think about that. Think about it this way. Every year, some people come to college, right? They get to be old enough to go to college and they borrow some money. Some people graduate and start paying, some people finish paying. So if the college population is staying roughly even, which it is, you would expect that $1.5 trillion ball of debt to stay about the same. But high interest rates, fees, defaults, penalties, that ball of debt is growing in America today at the rate of $100 billion a year. Decisions made in Washington are crushing an entire generation of young people. We must deal with the student loan debt burden outstanding. This is one of those things. What kind of a country does this to its young people? What kind of a country says, we can see it headed into the 21st century? We're going to need a lot of people who have education. Some of it's going to be technical training. It'll be a couple of years. Some it's going to be a 4-year diploma. Some it's going to be 6 years or 8 years or lifetime of coming back. And yet, right now, what does our federal government say? It says, good luck, you're on your own. And besides that, if you stumble, if you can't do it, if you can't get a high-paying job, we're going to hit you with the penalties. We're going to come after you. And just an extra little kicker in there, you go off to the mall and charge up thousands of dollars of just stuff, right? You buy a car that's fancy and, you know, has all the bells and whistles, right? And you get into trouble on the debt on it, you go through bankruptcy and get rid of it, but not student loan debt. Student loan debt will be there forever. Understand, there are people in this country right now whose Social Security checks are being garnished for student loans. Yeah, people who went back to school at 50 when they got laid off in the crash, people who are trying to make something of their lives, people who co-signed for a beloved grandchild. And now the grandchild can't pay, and they're coming back on the grandparents to pay for it. So just keep this in mind. Every time somebody says to me, you know, we don't want to get too partisan. No, I don't want to get too partisan, but I want to hold people accountable. Because a year and a half ago, the Republicans said, whoa, there's one thing we can get past, $1.5 trillion giveaway to giant corporations, millionaires, and billionaires. And what did they say to young people? Pay off more on your student loan debt. That is wrong. That is not who we are as a country, and I am fighting back on this. We're in there. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Okay. Who have we got? Okay, hi. Tell me your name.
I'm Josh Chandler. I'm a student here at Plymouth State.
All right.
How will you make Washington, D.C. more bipartisan?
Actually, I'll tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story. Anybody in here have a hearing loss? You didn't? Nobody said, huh? Hearing loss or love someone who has a hearing loss. Yeah, there we go. There are 44 million people in America who have hearing loss. And just for any of you who don't know someone with a hearing loss, understand, that's not just about turning the TV louder. It's a real human communication problem. It's about not talking to your family. It's about not being able to hear your grandchildren. It's about stopping going to the grocery store because you're worried you're not going to be able to understand when someone tells you something. It's about stopping driving. It has genuine life effects and health effects. 44 million people. So of those 44 million, here we go again, fewer than 1 in 6 gets the hearing aids that they need. You know the principal reason? Because they cost a lot of money. Thousands of dollars for one. Most people need 2. And they're not covered generally. They're not covered by Medicare. They're not covered by insurance. So think about who gets hit with that, right? Working people, middle-class people, folks who just can't get hearing aids. So I got to thinking about this after I got to Washington. Why are hearing aids so expensive? They're not nearly as fancy as your phone, right? Hearing aids you can't play games on your hearing aid. Which to me, or take pictures, right? Wait, just a minute. Yeah? Nobody does that. There's a lot more stuff going on your phone than there is on a hearing device. So why are they so expensive? And the answer is, it turns out that there are just a small number of hearing aid companies, and they put just enough twists and turns in state law, state by state by state by state, to keep the price up into the thousands of dollars for hearing aids. So I started talking to a bunch of scientists, doctors, you know, people who believe in science. And I asked him about this. I said, what would happen if hearing aids were just sold over the counter? You know, you buy glasses over the counter. You could pay more for a fancy pair. But man, for $19.99, you can get a pair that will give a lot of people a lot of help. Could we do the same thing with hearing aids? And they all said, yeah. You know, you'd probably bring the price down to maybe a couple of hundred, few $100s, right? In terms of what the stuff actually costs, plus a profit, if you had a real competitive market in this. So I thought, whoa, that's something you can fix at the federal level. So I wrote up a bill that said no state can prevent a manufacturer from selling hearing aids over the counter at a drugstore or wherever they want to sell it. Now here's what I did when I wrote this bill up. I very quietly called a Republican, very senior Republican. He said, what? Told him again, and he said, that's a good idea. Sign me up. And then I called another one, and another one, and another one. Kept this under the radar screen, no big headlines around it. Just kept getting more and more people on board. Now, there were moments when it got a little dicey, like when the NRA came out in opposition. I am not kidding. Whoa, that was a weird moment. But ultimately, we got a lot of Republicans and we got a lot of Democrats on board. And here's the best part. It got passed into law last year. Donald Trump signed it. And next year, hearing aids are going to be for sale over the counter. Now, I tell that story by way of saying, are there things we can do on a bipartisan basis? You bet there are. And I'm willing to do them. I will reach out. If it helps working families, count me in. I don't care what your party affiliation was. This is about making government work for working people. So I'm in. But also understand this. When the fight is over, do we knock tens of millions of people off health care or just 5s of millions of people off health care? No. I am on the other side, and I'm going to fight for health care coverage for every human being in this country. So, how are we going to make Washington more bipartisan in that case? The answer's up to you. When you get out there and you engage in democracy, when you say this is my set of issues, when you say I believe in universal child care, or I want to see the student loan debt burden reduced, and I'm going to vote for people who say I'm on board with that, and then I'm going to hold them accountable. That's how we get Washington working for working people again. And I think we might get some Republicans on that too. I sure hope so. Thank you. You got this, Paige? Yeah. Okay, Paige is ready.
We're going to call 3 more numbers.
All righty, Paige. In the meantime, we'll do a little musical interlude. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead,
4955.
Okay.
4955.
Do we have a winner? Yeah.
4997. 4997.
Do we have a 4997? There we go.
Okay. 4987. 4987.
We got it? We got 3 more teed up? Here we go. Okay, so we got 3 more teed up? Is that right? Did we get 3? Good. Okay.
I have a real simple question.
Oh, tell everyone your name first.
I'm Dick Osborne from Campton.
Hi, Dick.
And the simple question is, what is the chief impediment to getting universal health care?
So let's start with, it has taken us a long time as a country to get to a place where we can articulate our values. And I think we're now there as a country. And that's where we have to start. Healthcare is a basic human right, and we fight for basic human rights. So let's just start there. And then, for me, it all moves in pieces. So our job in Washington should be, how do we make sure that everybody gets covered at the lowest possible total cost? How do you give high quality care at the least cost overall? So let's do it in stages, because this is where we are. Part 1, we got to defend the Affordable Care Act. I know we're all looking down the line, and I get it, but do understand, there's a lawsuit pending down in Texas, and the Republicans are right now still working to do what they couldn't do in the Congress because they couldn't get the votes, missed it by 1 vote. Instead, are trying it through the courts just to repeal the entire Affordable Care Act. And we've got to keep on the line here. The HHS right now, they're doing everything they can to take the legs out from underneath it, to keep people from getting health insurance, to keep people from getting what's already promised under the Affordable Care Act. So that's part 1, is we got to fix that. Part 2 is there are some changes we could make right now, before you have to tackle the whole system, some changes we could make right now, and that is bring down the cost of prescription drugs. This is nuts. And if I can, just for 1 minute, I want to tell you about a proposal I have on this. 90% of all prescriptions are generic. Think about it. It's, if they did it this way, it's insulin for diabetes, been around for 100 years. What's in the EpiPen, high blood pressure medications, a lot of pain medications, right? They're generic drugs. And you all remember what we were told. And that is, we're going to give drug companies 6 years of exclusivity to market their drugs. Then they become generic. Anybody can manufacture it, and that's going to drive, we'll get a competitive market, and that's going to drive the cost down to basically cost plus, right? Cost plus a little profit. That was the idea. It's not working. It's not working. We've had a complete failure on that. 40% of all generic drugs right now, you know how many manufacturers there are? Either 1 or 0. Think about that. 60%, it's 2, 1, or 0, right? In other words, the drug company's been out there playing this game for a long time. And they got all kinds of tricks on it, but the bottom line is what should be drugs that come to you at a kind of cost plus a few bucks are still costing hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. And understand, we all pay. Whether we're paying for it in our insurance, whether we're paying for it in our taxes, whether people have to pay for it individually, we're all paying. So I have a bill that says, look, if you're in any of these drug areas where you're not getting competition, where we don't have a market that's actually functioning, then the government can simply contract on a cost-plus basis to get these drugs manufactured and to make them available to people who need them. Anybody can do it. So there it is, small prices. And by the way, for anybody in here who says, I don't like the government in this, let me just point out, we will keep it available. If a company wants to come in and say, I'll pick it up, I'll pick up the production of this, fine. You can go ahead and do it as long as we get a competitive market going. But we have to design drug policy around what's happening to working families, around people, not around the profitability of giant pharmaceutical companies. And then we come to part three. Where's the aspiration? How are we building this thing together? I believe in Medicare for all. I think that's how we're going to build a health system that works. Now, right now, there are a lot of different paths. There are multiple bills that people have signed on to. I've co-sponsored with Bernie, but there are other ways. Some people are saying bring the age down, bring this in gradually. We'll start at 65, then we'll bring it down to 60, we'll bring it down to 50, we'll bring it down to 40. Other people say, no, start at the other end. Everybody under 30, and then you bring it up. Some people say, tell you what, let's start by letting companies buy in. If they're doing private insurance and would like to switch to Medicare, let them buy into the system. Some people are saying, let individuals buy in. Bernie's bill has a slope into it because it's going to take time, because it's a big part of our economy. But I go back to where we started this. The principal goal has to be 100% coverage at the lowest possible price. And the good news is we're moving. The bad news is we're not moving fast enough. So I'm in this fight all the way on this one. Thank you. Thank you. I know on health care, I did my answer on that, but can I say one more thing on health care before we quit? It's about Medicaid. We talk about private insurance, we talk about Medicare, as we should. But one of the things the Republicans tried to do when they first tried to roll back health care, they didn't just try to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They actually wanted to roll back access to Medicaid, take millions of people away from protection under Medicaid. And I try to use these opportunities because a lot of folks think Medicaid, that's not me. That's not anybody I know, that's somebody else. We never, as Democrats, really gotten out there and made the case for Medicaid. So let me just remind everybody in this room, 2 out of every 3 seniors in a nursing home is counting on Medicaid to pay the bill. Your neighbor who needs a home health aide, maybe just an hour a day, that's Medicaid that pays. Your friend who had an opioid problem, who needs medical treatment, that's Medicaid that's doing that. And your niece who had the baby that ran up $1 million in medical bills in the first few months, even if the parents had gold-plated insurance, it's Medicaid that does the occupational therapists and the physical therapists and the speech therapists and the special breathing equipment and the special feeding equipment. The way I think of Medicaid is, as a people, we don't know whose grandma's going to outlive her savings. We don't know whose beloved brother is going to get caught in the web of addiction. We don't know whose neighbor's going to get hit by a bus. And we don't know whose beloved niece is going to have the baby that runs up millions of dollars in medical bills. But what we do know is that we're all human beings. And every single one of us pitches in a little so that if it hits your family or your family or your family, we're going to be there for each other. To me, Medicaid is one of the best parts of what we are as human beings and Americans. Okay, so I really get wound up on this stuff. Yes.
Hi, my name is Jubilee McGill.
Hello, Jubilee.
Hello.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to be here. I want to thank you for modeling the CARE Act on the historic HIV policy, the Ryan White CARE Act.
Yes.
And for your willingness to work with community organizations like Housing Works and the Opioid Network. We believe we can end the epidemic by 2025.
Yes.
I want to repeat that. We can end the HIV epidemic in this country by 2025. We do this by committing to stable, affordable housing.
Yes.
Access to affordable prescription medications, and access to truly affordable health care.
Yes.
As a senator, you can help keep this progress moving now. How will you keep this moving forward even before the election?
Oh, good. So great question, Jubilee. She has rightly pointed out, given me another opportunity to plug the CARE Act. This is the bill I have with Congressman Elijah Cummings from Maryland. That the answer is we've got to put real resources into this. But it's also the other pieces you talk about. It's healthcare, it's Medicaid, it's housing, it's all the pieces it takes. We have to look at this holistically. So here's the best thing I can do between now and 2020, and that is to keep talking about it every chance I get. To keep talking with you in the hopes that you will talk with someone else. To keep taking these questions, to keep asking the question. Let me ask it here. How many people know someone with an addiction problem? Look how many people in this room. We are here for them. This is part of our responsibility. This is part of who we need to be as Americans. So I'm going to keep banging on this. I will try to introduce bills right now. Mitch McConnell controls what you got to vote on, but you don't get what you don't fight for. So I'm in there fighting all the way. Thank you, Jubilee. Thank you. Thank you. What else we got? We have another one.
Thank you very much for coming out, Senator.
Thank you.
This is about
Tell me your name.
Oh, I'm Joseph.
Hi, Joseph. Hi. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you. So you endorsed the Green New Deal, if I'm correct. I have a couple things I want to read off of it, and I want your thoughts and all that. So it says, upgrading all existing buildings in the United States and building new buildings to achieve maximal energy. And another thing is eliminating all like oil, fossil fuels within a 10-year span. My concern, though, is the economic impact that can be in upwards of trillions and trillions of dollars that it can cost the United States. What are your thoughts?
So it's interesting you would frame it that way, Joseph. You know, if we spend money building here in America, that helps our economy. And at the end, when we build a new building, we got a new building, right? No, but this is important. When we spend money upgrading our buildings so they don't use as much energy, we have a more valuable building. Think about it this way. Just think about it as an infrastructure issue, okay, and a hardening our infrastructure, an upgrading our infrastructure. Right now, China is making huge infrastructure investments, and this is across the board. They're doing it on rapid transit, they're doing it on energy, they're actually doing it on a lot of clean energy, right? They're trying to get there on the 21st century. Why? Because they're building a future for their economy. They're building a future for good jobs in China. It makes sense. Build your infrastructure, make your infrastructure more efficient, make your infrastructure so that businesses don't have to pay as much on something like their utilities, and you make it more likely that businesses can grow and flourish right here in the United States. Let me make the pitch this way. I think of investments in infrastructure, in our buildings, in our roads, and our bridges, and mass transit, and communication, and all of this. And and making it green is like a farmer plowing the field. That our country makes the big investments. Because it isn't going to work if you have to build the road in front of your house, and you have to build the road in front of your house, and you have to build the road in front of your house, and we hope somehow they all hook up. It's got to be that we've got to make those big investments together. We got to plow the fields so that you can come plant something, and you can come plant something, and you can come plant something. And that's how we build an economy going forward. I believe that if we keep heading in the direction we're headed in now, which is underspending, way too little on infrastructure. Right now, American Society of Civil Engineers says that they give us a D+. That's D+. D as in dog. Sorry, Bailey. D as in dog on the quality of our infrastructure, and they're easy graders. We can't build a 21st century infrastructure, a 21st century economy on a decaying 20th century infrastructure. And so failing to make those investments in infrastructure is a dead end for us. And instead, permitting oil companies to continue to get subsidies from the American taxpayer, encouraging more drilling offshore, I think that's another dead end for America. So for me, this really is. I'm with you on it's all about how you think we build an economy going forward. But I think the way we build an economy going forward is we build a green economy, we build a 21st century economy that's going to be robust growth right here in America. That's how I see it. Good to see you, Joseph. Yep. Good. Got another one?
Thank you all for all of your questions.
Is that it?
Yes.
I was going to do 3 more. Okay. No.
Senator Warren will be with us for a short while afterwards to take some pictures with you and Bailey.
I'll be here as long as the people want to.
So please line up on the left side if you would like to take some pictures.
So before you do, let me just say one thing. Before you do, thank you. First of all, it's thank you, Paige. Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, for the introduction. But let me say one other thing before we get up and start doing this part. And that is, I get it. I'm talking about big structural change, and at a time when little change is hard. At a time when a lot of people say, just fight for some tiny little thing at the margin. I'm fighting for big structural change because that's what we need in this country. We have a broken political system, and a broken political system is breaking our economy, it's breaking our environment, it's breaking our healthcare system, every part of this. I get that this is hard, really hard, but I think back to how many other people before us fought hard. You know, they told the abolitionists, this is too hard, give up. It's all in the Constitution. You're never going to be able to make change. They told the early suffragettes, it's just too hard. Quit now. They told the leaders of the labor movement, quit now. This is too hard. They told the foot soldiers of the civil rights movement, this is too hard. Quit now. They told the gay activists who wanted equal marriage, too hard, quit now. But every one of them got organized, persisted, stayed in the fight, and changed the course of American history. That's who we are. That's who we are. I'm here. I'm here because I believe in the change we can make together.